Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Dino. It's mid-October here in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and the nighttime temperatures are starting to get down into the single digits. But that's not going to stop my friend Karl and I from taking one final overnight ride before Old Man Winter slams the door on us for the 2022 riding season. I'm just finishing packing up my bike here, and then we're going to point both of our DR650s southeast into New York State in the United States. And we're going to visit what in 2015 was voted as the top state park in all of the USA. I'm talking about nothing other than Letchworth State Park. The fall color should be in absolute peak shape when we get down there, and I'm looking forward to overnighting in the cabins that Karl's rented before with his wife. So why don't you sit back, grab yourself something warm to drink, and enjoy Dino's Tinker Shed. This should be a really fun trip, and I can't wait to see you in a couple minutes. Bye for now. As with many adventures, mine started by waiting. I had to wait almost 25 minutes for this train to finally pass and allow me to get across the train tracks here and get over to Karl's house. But once I picked Karl up, it's really only about 20 minutes to get from his house over to Highway 104 in the United States, crossing at Lewiston. Now, the first thing you see on this highway is the Sir Adam Beck power plant on the Canadian side. It's a great view of a power plant that's provided power all through Ontario and New York State for a long time. And as you head down the escarpment into the town of Lewiston itself, it's absolutely beautiful views. But all I could think about was my brother and sister-in-law, Joe and Karen, that live about 1/8 of a mile from this sign marker. Guys, I hope you're doing well. The 104 itself is a 4-lane highway, but there's not a lot of traffic on it, and it's pretty scenic. Even the fall color was starting to creep into the trees here. But it wasn't long before the 104 ends, and we had to make our first turn.
Hey, go off-roading.
Yeah, it's alright.
I thought it was the exit, I don't know why.
We turned left onto Highway 18 here, and it heads pretty much east along the southern shores of Lake Ontario. It runs through some beautiful small communities and a lot of these trellis bridges that span these small tributaries that feed into Lake Ontario. It's super scenic, the road's twisty and it's fun to ride on, and it's not overly fast, which fits really good for these DR650s. What was really nice though was eventually you come along and actually get some lake footage, or lake views I guess, of Lake Ontario, and you can see just how big Lake Ontario really is. Now this is dotted with some rural farmland as well as you transition between that farmland and more lake views. It really is entertaining, and it keeps you visually stimulated as you ride along. Eventually, Karl and I did have to turn sort of southeast, I guess, to get to Attica, and we took a bunch of lefts and rights to get there. It's a little bit hard to map out the entire route here. But eventually, we ended up in Attica, New York, which is where the famous maximum security prison is. Now, we didn't know where to eat, so we ended up asking a few people, and they recommended us to go to the Prospector restaurant. Now, the Prospector looks like it's in an old bank here, and the food was absolutely delicious. We had their taco special. It even came with pie. I had pineapple upside down cake. It was awesome. After that fantastic lunch, we hopped back on the bikes and headed straight to Letchworth State Park. And one thing we noticed is the road started to get hillier and the fall color actually started to get a little bit better as we headed closer and closer to the park. Now the camera doesn't even do it justice in terms of how colorful things were, mostly because of the overcast day that we were riding on here. But I will tell you that the scenery was absolutely epic and beautiful to ride through, and the temperatures, well, I mean, they were perfect, about 18 degrees. Now, not far outside the town of Perry, we approached the Perry entrance to the park here, which is on sort of the northwest side of the park. We stopped at the gate, and then it was just a matter of riding to our cabin for the night.
The cabin's reserved for 2 nights.
Okay, are you C or A
C.
or C? Okay, just go straight at the stop sign to the office.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
Well, I got a parent tall boy of the finest of beer, the king of beers. It's called a Budweiser.
You can do roller coasters in English, but if it's related to air, that's a separate policy.
Like a plane, even?
I didn't ask her that. As we woke up the following day, well, we woke up to rain. I mean, it had rained all night, everything was wet, and it was still raining even when we got up. But after about an hour, it settled down to a light mist, and we decided that we would head out and get some breakfast and see what the weather was going to really do. Neither of us really mind too much riding in the mist like this, but when it really pours, there might be better things to do. So we headed out and actually headed north out of the park. It was a beautiful day, and the colors again were just spectacular to see. The road through the park is about 17 miles, and the campground that we're at is about 2/3 of the way through, so we probably had about a 5-mile ride through the park, and I got to sort of familiarize myself with it before we finally came to the north gate here. Just outside the north gate, we made a left turn heading towards Mount Morris, New York. And we stopped and had breakfast at Brian's USA Diner, which is just a great place to eat. Karl knows all the best spots, I gotta say, but this one was really special. Oh yeah, there's a spot right there.
Not my feet, but like.
Alright. I'll go find a spot. And find a spot I did. And I have to say, I've eaten a lot of breakfasts in my days. The scrambled eggs here were the best scrambled eggs I've ever had in my life. They were more like an omelet. Really, really, really tasty. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as we got on the bikes after breakfast, the skies just opened up. I mean, it was absolutely hammering here. And you know what? It's not too fun to ride in the rain like this because my helmet fogs up. I think everybody's does. So we decided to go and see if we could find a little bit of shelter in the area and see if the rain would pass. So we made our way back in and scooted back into the park here. And we ran into one of the many staff who are extremely friendly and just shoot us through without even needing any kind of reference.
Hey, can you turn the rain off for us? I will.
Just up the road, inside the gate here, Karl brought me to a picnic area. This is like a family picnic area if you were having a family reunion. And it had a really unique feature. It had all of these charcoal braziers that are inside the building, and they're vented through this giant hood. It was really cool. Of course, we sat around for about 20 minutes. It really sort of just started to slow down. So we ended up actually starting to ride a little bit more. A lot of leaves had come down with that rain, and we had to watch ourselves riding on this slippery asphalt. But overall, it was a lot of fun just to get out back on the bikes. One of the first places we stopped was a spot called Eddie's Overlook, which basically there's many of these little stops along the way, and all of them are just amazing. And this one gives you a really good view of the gorge down below, which in some areas can be close to 600 feet deep. Now, all of the stone walls and structures that you see here were built in the 1930s under President Roosevelt. All of this structure and all of this stonework was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, and it was an effort to reinvigorate the economy and get things up and moving. One of the coolest features were these picnic tables or tea tables that are made entirely out of stone and wood, and they're maintained impeccably, something a lot of other parks could probably learn a few things from. All the stone walls are dead straight still and maintained great. It really is a pretty place, and there's many spots like this all along the parkway here. It really is neat. Like, check out this little pavilion with a flagstone floor and an actual fireplace. Really, really neat. As we left Eddie's Overlook, you get to see some more of this fantastic stonework that has been built up over the years and maintained. I can't say how important that is. You know the snowplows are coming through here, and yet someone still fixes this dry-laid flagstone wall that meanders down the hill. I mean, this is really impressive stuff here, and shows the fact that somebody in the management really, really respects the legacy of this park. It really is refreshing to see. As we got to the end of this wall, we had to stop again here at Wolf Creek Viewpoint. Now, we stopped dozens of times. I'm not going to show you everything on here, but Wolf Creek really was one of the prettiest sites that we stopped at. We even met some families here that wanted to feed us. But Wolf Creek is one of the small tributaries that's feeding into the Genesee River, and I want you to just see just how beautiful this area is. As we left the Wolf Creek parking area, we headed back out onto the parkway, and it wasn't long before we came across another spectacular spot to view from. This is called the Great Bend Lookout, and it's an amazing spot. But don't take my word for it. Have a look for yourself and just see how stunning the landscape is here in Letchworth Park.
My tenure at the park has done me well with certain words, and no, he just planted.
That's stunning over there.
No, he planted different trees, and you get a better. I don't know, better like this. Look at this. I don't think he planted that.
But in the park itself, though, you can see all the different varieties, right?
The varieties of trees. But this was mostly native land.
As I said in the opening, Letchworth State Park was voted the #1 state park in all of America in 2015, and it really does deserve that title. It's an amazing place to visit. Yet with all of the accolades that come with such a title, it's the ability for a person to lose themselves in the park that is truly special. Of course, the park would not exist if it were not for William Pryor Letchworth, who in 1858 crossed the Genesee River High Bridge for the first time and fell in love with the area. The following year, Mr. Letchworth began purchasing lands and buildings until he owned over 1,000 acres, including the Glen Iris Estate, pictured here. Perhaps the most famous feature of Letchworth are the 3 main waterfalls along the Genesee River, known simply as the Lower, Middle, and Upper Falls. Although there are other falls in the park, these are the largest and most impressive, with the Middle Falls being over 100 feet high. Karl and I viewed 2 of the falls, the Upper, Middle, and we'll leave the Lower Falls for another day. In any case, the 2 we viewed are just awesome and well worth the ride to see. Now in 1907, Mr. Letchworth deeded the lands to the state of New York with the provision that he be allowed to live there at the Glen Iris Estate until he finally passed away in 1910, at which time Letchworth State Park was born. There really is so much to see that I can't really show you everything in this video, so you should really plan your trip and get booked in here soon. It really is that nice. After we finished at the Glen Iris Estate area, we decided to travel across the Genesee River and explore the east side of the park. Now, the east side is much more remote feeling, with most of the road being gravel and in some cases almost a double-track trail. Scattered throughout the road were trailheads for hiking trails. Letchworth State Park has over 28 formally maintained and marked hiking trails. They range in length from half a mile to 25 miles, and they total over 66 miles of trails altogether. So if your wandering soul likes to hike as much as it does ride, Letchworth Park may be for you. About 5 miles into the trip, we came across another group of more rugged cabins. These ones are a little smaller and they're pretty much all made out of wood. And it goes to show you Letchworth has something for everybody, regardless of what you want your experience to be. We carried on riding past these cabins until we came to the end of the trail, which overlooked the Genesee River at the Big Bend, but this time on the east side of the river. The viewpoint was well maintained with great views, and even the stone wall here was in great shape. It goes to show you how well this park is actually run. Of course, being the end of the trail, we just turned around and headed back towards the entrance to the east side of the park. Of course, the day was getting late by this time, and we decided to cross back over the Genesee River and head back to camp for dinner and a good night's sleep. Well, it is a beautiful night here in Letchworth Park. Kids are playing. Why don't I give you a tour of what these cabins look like? So they'll sleep, by the looks of it, about 8 people, but let's have a look inside. The heater's on because it is kind of cool in here today. But here's what they look like. They've got a large open space here where you can cook. They've got an actual stove, a microwave, and a fridge, but there's no running water. If you want to use the washroom or wash your dishes, you have to use a separate container. And I guess that keeps the build cost down in here. But it's all 3/4 inch tongue and groove pine, and you can see there's 2 adjacent rooms with bunk beds and a cot. So those will sleep 6 people quite comfortably. And it's really warm and toasty. Like I say, we've had the heater on here because we got stuck in the rain a few times. And, well, we're just drying out our gear. Karl's just run into town to get a couple other things. I ate a little bit of leftover pizza. And now I'm just reading a little bit. Really, really fun place to stay. Well, the following day, the weather was much improved with no rain. However, the temperatures were cool at only about 7 degrees Celsius or somewhere in the mid-40s in Fahrenheit. As we made our way through the park and headed for home, the full sun made the colors pop, and it really was a treat to see how vibrant the leaves really were. It's only about a 2.5-hour ride back to Niagara Falls, and we took all the back roads that we could, and it was a much less direct route than we could have, just to try and stretch out the ride and enjoy the nice fall day. However, before long, we were back in Niagara Falls, ending a great 3-day ride. Well, everyone, that wraps up today's 3-day, multi-day ride down into Letchworth State Park. I hope you enjoyed it. I know Karl and I really did. It's probably going to be the last multi-day overnight ride that Karl and I do here in 2022. It's getting a little bit cold. We're coming into late October, and I'm starting to think a little bit about snowmobiling. It's always a little bit of a bittersweet time in the late fall here in Ontario, because it sometimes gets a little bit too cold to keep riding your motorcycle, but it's not quite warm or cold enough to get the sled out and do some riding. But I know I'll be able to get back into the shed for the next couple months now and work on some sort of instructional videos, which is really what I like to do in the shed there. If you like today's ride and you like the content, by all means, please like and consider subscribing. I really would appreciate it. And by all means, please leave a comment, because that's what I really like the most, is reading what you're doing and how you like the channel. So until next time, I'm going to get back in here and get a few things set up for the next video, but I hope to see you soon here on Dino's Tinker Shed. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.